Hey, what's up, everyone? We got a great show for you guys today. We're going to get into more of the off-season talk and some of the stuff the Saints should be doing. And as always, we are coming to you from the Better Call BADEAUX podcast studio, and we are presented by Hardhide Ponchatoula Strawberry Whiskey. And that is an 86 proof blend of 3-year-old wheat bourbon, American light whiskey, and fresh Ponchatoula strawberries. It is blended in New Orleans, and it is not for the thin-skinned. Look for it in your favorite bars, restaurants, and stores. And if you need legal help with any of the following: car wrecks, 18-wheeler collisions, offshore injuries, Maritime Jones Act, hurricane, and storm claims, you better call BADEAUX at 504-323-7777 or 985-303-7777 for your free consultation and case review. And when you're out and about this month, make sure you check out our friends on Veterans Boulevard, Firehouse Subs. Great people do great stuff for the community, so make sure you check them out, get a sandwich, and say what's up to them. All right, let's get into the show.
All right, NewOrleans.Football listeners, what's up? We back. It's another episode of the NewOrleans.Football podcast. I'm Kevin. I'm here with Nick. I'm here with Mike, and we got Brandon on the back. Today, we're going to be talking about Sean Payton. What should the Saints do at quarterback? Sean Payton, some roster moves. Sean Payton.
Yeah.
Maybe some of the things they can do with the staff and a little bit more to Sean Payton. So that's our agenda for today. Guys, what's going on? How we doing? Let's start with you, Nick, and then we can run to Mike. What's up?
Doing well, man. Doing well.
Mike.
Yeah, I like your rundown. It's all we're thinking about too. I mean, we've already talked about it, but it's fun. Look, hey man, he's paying it forward to this team.
He's dominating.
I look forward to seeing. I hope it plays out this week or in the coming weeks. I don't want to be doing this again in 12 months.
Yeah, nothing really matters though. Nothing really matters until that happens. So everything should kind of be on hold because you can't really talk about their offseason plan until you know what assets they have to acquire new players. And nothing matters until they get to players. We can argue about coaches, all that stuff. You need good players. Good players make schemes. Schemes make good players better, but you need good players to make a scheme. And right now they need more good players. They need a quarterback, and getting that pick at least represents hope of maybe getting a quarterback. So until we know what it is, it's tough to really kind of move forward.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm just going to use that to just jump right into a topic. I saw that Loomis said that, they would make that trade again, right? The trade that they made last year and, that they ended up with 2 first-round picks and they're happy with those guys. How much are you buying it, right? Like if you can go back, and it's not really like, do you believe Loomis? It's more about like if you can go back and maybe reverse those trades, like how would you play that again?
It all depends if you would take Trevor Penning with the 10th pick this year.
So Olave stays for sure, and you're looking at the
they were going to trade up for Olave last year, no matter what. There was clear Olave conviction last year. Penning was the guy they got with the other pick. So I think I don't believe him because I don't think they'd take Trevor Penning with the 10th pick in this year's draft. But if that's even close to a yes, then fine. I mean, we've seen them do it a million times. He said we like getting our guys in the building a year early. So if Trevor Penning is in the neighborhood or the ballpark of being the 10th pick in this year's draft, then fine. The quarterback thing is the big thing, though. And it was funny because I was the one who asked him, what made you being so willing to use both of your picks, your 2022 and your 2023, on non-quarterbacks? And he kind of paused and he said, it's a good question. He goes, well, first of all, to get the definite sure thing quarterback, we think you have to be in the top 5. And we weren't in the top 5 last year. And we certainly didn't think we'd be in the top 5 this year. Well, they were damn close. They were damn close to being in the top 5 this year. And 10 is almost close enough to get the quarterback. So that's the biggest screw up on that pick.
My problem with him, and I get his logic of getting the guy in here and they like the player and they've spent the year developing him. So now maybe next year he's ready to go. Theoretically, he didn't really spend enough time on the field.
Yeah.
I think to really feel great about that situation. My problem with that pick, though, is that they did it at 19. At 10, you probably shouldn't be drafting a year-long project at tackle. And I know the positional value there is just like it is at defensive end. So if you're picking at 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, you do kind of have to take a chance on somebody that has upside to get the value out of that pick. But a top 10 pick is a guy that should come in and be a day one starter. And Trevor Penning was never going to be a day one starter.
Yeah.
And he might end up being a great player, but it's still the value for that for me. It doesn't add up. So I get Mickey's
we're just asking if we believe Mickey Loomis had any truth to what he was saying at all. First of all, no. He didn't. He would trade Trevor Penning for the 10th pick in this draft 100 times out of 100. Everyone watching would rather have the 10th pick in this year's draft than Trevor Penning. But if Trevor Penning becomes
you forget
a 3-time All-Pro,
Yeah.
then hey, Mickey Loomis will have the last laugh in the future.
It's everything. If it works out, you forget about it. You forget about the cost acquisition. You aren't looking at him like, oh, this guy. Like if Marcus Davenport would have been someone who got 15 sacks, 11 sacks, 12 sacks every season, all 5 years of his rookie deal, no one would have been like, oh, he cost 2 first-round picks. It's just like, oh, he's a really good player, and that's it. So Penning can make all of us forget about this by becoming what he looks like he can be. It's unfair to say this. I'm a little concerned about how his career started with 2 foot injuries very quickly. He is somebody that is a lot bigger and a lot more athletic than a human should be. And it does kind of make you have Armstead type thoughts of like, they're completely different body types, but Armstead was pushing his body to limits that he shouldn't go to. Penning, I'm looking at like, man, is he doing, is he pushing the limits here? And does that put him at risk? Totally unfair thing to say right now because we have 1 year and he might never get hurt again the rest of his year. But the first year, I think as we sit here and look at it, man, it could have went a little bit better than it did for him. Even if he didn't play, you want him on the field. And, I talked to Streif. Marone also said it, like, if you aren't on the field, you aren't developing the same way you should be. You can do everything in the classroom, but until Penning's in there and he's losing reps, and then he can go back and watch film and go on the field, rep it a different way and go back out there the next game and fix it, you aren't really getting that full learning process. And he's somebody that I think needs a lot of that. He looks really good in run blocking so far because that's a lot more effort and get downfield and just beat the hell out of people. But, in pass pro where people are kind of attacking him with the plan, we saw issues. So he needs to be able to fix that stuff. And he wasn't able to do that this year. There is a ton of upside there, but just given the value, I don't think it, I just don't think it adds up for the number 10 pick in the draft.
They acted too much like they were trading last year's 18th pick for this year's 18th pick. They thought they were going to be the same team. That dictated every decision they made from hiring Dennis Allen on down to every single thing they did last year, and they were wrong. They went from being the team with the 18th pick to being the team with the 10th pick. And
was it 8? I think it was 19. Either way.
Well, they started with the 18th pick.
They moved back. Yeah, you're right.
And so when they made that trade, they had the 18th pick. But that they just operated as if they were going to be the same team, and they weren't. They were a much worse team, and that made it a horrible trade. But the only thing, 2 things can save them. If they had been picking 5th this year instead of 10th puts them right on the. He is probably right about one thing. At 10. You probably can't even trade up for Stroud or Bryce Young. Everybody wants to trade up for Stroud and Bryce Young. Maybe Will Levis. Maybe.
I think Levis is going to go. I'm hearing from like the scouting community that they all like Levis more than
right.
Stroud.
But what I'm saying is they might go 1, 2, 3. They really might. By the time these trades happen, they're all going in the top 5.
There's a lot of scouts that like Levis more than Stroud, and it's just kind of comes down to it's the Josh Allen factor. Josh Allen had horrible college tape. You saw all the traits he put it together. Like I think Josh Allen changed scouting a little bit and just how people look at things. And Levis has a lot of those same traits, and they're looking at Stroud like this guy doesn't move a lot in the pocket. He's not as mobile. Like the game's changing a little bit. I think the scout, like I don't know, it's going to be interesting to see. But Stroud is a significantly safer player to draft. So it also depends. Like if you're Houston and you're Nick Caserio and Young goes number 1, and you're sitting there like, are you gambling on Levis, who I think has very high bust potential, but you go to Stroud, who's safer. It's going to be a fascinating thing to see how it plays out.
Yeah. What about just to push it? Well, one thing I will say is that you mentioned Teron Armstead. I saw my guy's injuries he was dealing with going into that game.
I was rooting for them, man. I was rooting for them. He should be in round 2 of the playoffs. They gave it everything they had.
He had a shoulder, a pec, a hip, a knee, a thigh, a headache. His feelings was hurt, like everything. But he played, man. That's Teron, man. Teron is a warrior, man. So
he is.
Yeah, shout out to him. But yeah, this is just a fun question. Would you trade Olave for the 10th pick right now? I asked this question a few weeks ago, and now we know exactly what pick it is. So just kind of considering what you may end up getting. Go ahead.
There's a lot here. There's a lot here that I would have to go through to answer that.
Yeah, I was about to dig in. Like we don't know what the pick is with Sean. Right. There's some other factors that go into it,
so
right?
If you have
right now,
if you have another high pick with Sean, and now you're talking about like maybe being able to send 10 and 12 to somebody to get up to 2, maybe you consider it because it is quarterback. Quarterback's super expensive, and it's the most important position on the field. That's
Yeah.
maybe the only way I do it though. Is if I know I can get all the way up to like 2, because Olave is really good. I think he's a foundational piece to your team. I think that
Yes.
I think there's some stuff they got to consider too. I'm going to save this thought for the OC thing, but I mean, I think there's things just with like scheme that he opens up that maybe another player doesn't. So if you're telling me somehow trading Olave gets me up to 1 or 2, and then I have my choice between Stroud or Levis or Young, and 2 of the 3 quarterbacks, I probably would do it.
It's about even.
Right.
It's about even for me. I mean, and you don't even have to have the theoretical conversation. Maybe you can trade 12 and Olave for the number 2 pick in the draft. I think he's worth about the 10th pick in this year's draft. Yeah, it's possible you can do better. I mean, he showed some warts, especially down the stretch. But I think he's going to learn from those and get better. I think you'd be perfectly happy if he's what you got with the 10th pick in this year's draft. So I'm going to call that one at least even.
For me though, like it's not even just really even about like Olave in particular. Like pretty much any receiver this side of Justin Jefferson, I would probably trade for a quarterback if I don't have it. If my options are having CD Lamb or Andy Dalton.
But I'm just saying, I'm saying now that we know what that second pick became, it became the 10th pick in this year's draft. I think that pick is worth Olave. I don't think the jury's out on whether that pick will ever be worth Penning. Certainly, we don't think so at this time. But if Olave was the only one we were talking about, and Mickey Loomis was saying, we got that guy in the building. His name is Chris Olave, and we're perfectly happy with him. I think that is a wash people are willing to accept.
My
losing
point more
the
in
10th
general
pick
is
in this year's draft and it being Chris Olave.
Positional value in general.
Of course,
like this side of Justin Jefferson,
of course.
Tyreek Hill, I guess I would take him over one of those guys too, because he's a
Jamar Chase.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, it's tough though.
Yeah,
like I would rather
high end.
Yeah, I would rather have Joe Burrow than Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase or whoever. So like, if you're giving me a shot at getting one of the top 2 guys, it's tough for me to say no to anybody. And it's not about Chris Olave. It's just like, give me the quarterback before the receiver outside of, a generational talent. And I think it's a pretty easy
But
decision.
to Kevin's point, if you're allowed to use a time machine and say the Saints never made that trade, and they don't trade at all. Let's call them the Chargers or the Packers or whatever. Let's say they took Penning at 18 last year because Olave went whatever. So let's say they took Penning at 18 last year. He's not part of this discussion at all. And the only thing was, the only way they could get Olave is if they traded their 2023 10 for him. Then that is the prism by which you can be like, all right, it wasn't the worst trade of all time. But
yeah, look, that's
being very kind.
There's a lot of hypotheticals, if and maybe. Like, if you're telling me that they get stuck at 10 in this draft and they don't get one of the quarterbacks and Olave's in this class and they drafted Olave at 10, it would be like, wow, that's a really good pick. They needed a wide receiver. So I mean, there's just so many variables here. The problem is, and I wrote the story earlier in the year, that they should have had the option though of like being like, hey, these are our picks. We're looking at it like this. Can we do this? Can we do that? Can we pair things together?
They should have the option of quietly tanking like Lovie Smith with the Buccaneers and not like Lovie Smith with the Texans.
Right. Oh, okay. We're going to take a look at, we're going to get these young players.
We want to look at Jake Luton at quarterback for a couple of weeks.
But for real though, like it should have been an option, and they took that from themselves.
Look, we are going through a thought exercise here, but if the first question was, are you mad at the Saints for that trade? Then yes, 99.9%. I mean, they, on Rotten Tomatoes, they got a 0.1% for that trade. But if you want to give it the most positive spin ever, it's that, okay, they would have taken Penning last year. They're taking Olave with their pick this year. That's the most positive way you can describe what they did.
And if that's how it played out and there were no quarterbacks, nobody would be mad at it. Honestly, they wouldn't. But everybody's mad at everything right now. So.
I'll say this. Good discussion from that side topic question. I love it. But I asked the question, but I wouldn't have answered my own question, to be honest with you, because my response would have been, let's see what you get from Payton. And I think Mike, you said it, if you can pair Olave with somebody to get one of those quarterbacks, then cool. Otherwise, it's like, I'm keeping them, right? Because when you look at positional value, wide receiver is right up there with defensive end, is right up there with offensive lineman now. It's just one of those positions. And the salary talks about it, right? You look at the Adams contract, Tyreek Hill got a contract. These guys are getting paid. So you got one of the more valuable positions. Cornerback is up there too. That's another one. But it would have to be with the quarterback involved, because otherwise you're not getting your return on investment. Especially because he's a sure thing at this point, right? Like when you compare Chris Olave with any wide receiver that's going to be in this draft, he has one major advantage than all these guys. in that he's not a bust.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know you're going to get a good NFL player, right? A guy he can have every trait in the world, but you don't know how he's going to perform in the NFL. So, I think Olave has more value than any wide receiver in this draft in some ways. And I'm not saying he's the best prospect. I'm saying
No,
he's a guaranteed success,
I
right?
agree.
And that is something that every evaluator would take.
It's one of the best things they did in 2022. It's probably got the highest approval rating of anything they did in 2022.
Yeah. But if they said, hey, you get the Texans pick at 12 or something, or the Panthers pick, and you pair that up and you may get your future, then you got to start having conversations, because Olave doesn't matter if no one's throwing in the ball, right? And shout out to the legend Red Rifle Andy Dalton, but I don't think that's the way you want to go in the future.
Yeah.
So So let's transition into the guy that we're supposed to spend the rest of the podcast on, which we already spent part of him, and that's Sean Payton. So the Chargers lost this weekend in dramatic fashion. I mean, I text Nick, and I think Trevor Lawrence was 4 for 16 with 4 interceptions, and I was like, there it goes, and then turn around. I text him later in the game. I'm like, hey man, this is like pretty crazy. What do you think they're gonna do with Sean? So listen, there's gonna be a lot of speculation from us, and I'm gonna ask speculative questions because this is the season of speculation. And Sean Payton, I think he has interest from 5 teams. So just thoughts on the Chargers, both of you guys, anyone you guys can start. Like, do you think that's a potential? Do you think they're in play now, especially since they lost in such dramatic fashion, or is it hard to get rid of a quarterback who just took your team to the playoffs?
A coach that just took your team to the playoffs.
Yeah, my bad. Yeah.
I don't think they're going to do it. I mean, I don't know. It seems like a lot of people are kind of talking about it like they aren't going to do it.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I mean, I'm going to defer to the people that know that team better than us. It gives them cover if they want to go to Sean and they wanted to fire this guy. There's an argument to be made too that they just maybe changing coordinators is what they need, because their defense showed you in that game early on, at least, what they can be. I think there's some warts with this guy. I also think it's one of those things where it's kind of like there's this like groundswell of like everybody formed an opinion and nobody really has enough information to have a super, like, I don't have enough information on Brandon Staley other than last year you saw him mismanage a game at the end that cost them the playoffs and this epic meltdown. But I don't have enough information to like really go into like, well, they're making a catastrophic mistake of keeping this guy. I don't know, but it seems like if you wanted to go to Sean on the surface, you have a great young quarterback. There's an offensive coach here. It seems like putting them together would sure make a lot of sense, which is why we've all kind of assumed that they would do this if the opportunity existed. But it seems like they aren't gonna. I just don't know if it's dumb or not. But we'll see what they do if it works.
First of all, poor Joe Lombardi. He's getting treated nationally this year. The Chargers offensive coordinator, for anyone who doesn't know, is longtime former Saints assistant Joe Lombardi.
He's
getting treated nationally like DA has been treated locally this year. He's just like the punching bag of the NFL this year. But he probably will take the hit there. Yeah, look, the thing about the Chargers is not only do the people think they're probably going to stick with Brandon Staley, who, by the way, is 19 and 16 in his first 2 years on the job. He hasn't completely failed there, but obviously expectations should be higher. But also that their Chargers, the people who know that team are saying they're not the kind of team that would pay Sean Payton what he wants, and B, give Sean Payton the power that he wants. They've had their GM there for a couple decades, I think. Like, they're not a team that makes the kind of moves like we want to be the one to go out and hire Sean Payton and give him ultimate power. So people are very skeptical that will happen. But the thing that is good, as Nick said, is that loss gives you cover if that's the move you wanted to make. So if this team had any thoughts of, what we need to do? We need to pair Sean Payton with Justin Herbert. They now have the green light to do that without being second guessed. And so we're at least going to find out I think there was a little bit of a thought before that game that maybe Sean Payton would wait a year for the possibility of getting that Chargers job. At least now I think he'll find out from back channel conversations. They might let him know, hey, just move on, Sean, because we're not ever gonna make this move. So he's gonna at least find out whether to wait a year for the Chargers job or to cross them off the list. And I think he can probably cross them off the list if they don't hire him this week.
Yeah, if it doesn't come now, it's never coming.
Yeah, exactly.
Follow-up question for you, Mike. If you're Mickey Loomis, do you want the Chargers to go for Sean Payton?
Well, I want yes, because I want as many teams involved as possible. I want as many teams that have decent first-round picks this year as possible. But I also want Sean to say yes to a job this year. I want Sean Payton to take a job this year. I do not want to wait another year for this to happen. So let's throw them all in the mix right now and tell Sean, let's make your decision. Let's get to it. I don't want this carrying over for another year.
But the Chargers they probably have the lowest.
I think it's 24th or something like that. Sure.
Right.
That could be part of a package. Sure.
You got the Panthers, you got Denver, you got Arizona, you got Texans, and these, I guess Denver pick is maybe like around 19. I forget it.
I just want to make sure Sean says yes to one of them. That's where we got to start before we get picky. I want it to happen in 2023 more than I want any specific draft pick.
Yeah.
What about
he'd say yes to that one. So I mean that's why you want him in the mix. That's a job he's absolutely going to take. I think then there's one in the bag, and now he's measuring the other ones to see, all right, am I going to take this job? Am I not going to take this job? But there's one in the bag that almost certainly he would say yes to, and then you kind of go from there. But look, if you're the Chargers, it's something that I would have to seriously consider, because when you went up 27-0, you ran 8 times and passed 25 times after having a 27-0 lead. Like, you just need a little bit of a better approach there. So maybe that is OC, maybe it's not, but yeah, definitely if you're Mickey, you want every single team in the mix, because it creates a little bit of competition. I know like Sean's has a lot of control here, but if there's multiple teams, now you can say, well, like, look, this team is offering me this, so I'm not even going to approve this deal unless you match what they're offering me. So there isn't like the necessarily like the Deshaun Watson type leverage, but there is some leverage there when there's multiple teams.
No question.
And yeah, I mean, so that's good.
And the thing that scares me, first of all, I know Mickey doesn't like the Sean Payton ghost hanging over Dennis Allen too. I mean, that was really hurtful late this season. But if we're having this discussion next year, then everybody's saying, and Sean Payton could just wait one more year and these teams wouldn't have to pay anything to the Saints. I don't want that getting in anyone's head either. Like,
I still think a year from now, though, if you want them, you pay for them, because you have to hire somebody else. Now you're waiting a year.
But even Sean might be like, "Hey, I waited this long. I'll wait one more year, and then I'm not going to a team that's given up its first round pick."
Look,
like,
I
I just want it this year for a million reasons.
This is me just talking, but I think when Sean looks at that list and he says Bill Parcells was traded for this, Bill Belichick was traded for this, I think Sean wants to make sure he's traded for because it's
a status symbol.
Yeah, it's how are you valued?
He wants to be in those articles.
Everybody's like, oh well, like he wouldn't. I don't know, man. Like, I think that if you're a competitive person, you want that. You don't want to be going for this much less than your mentor. Like, you want to be, okay, this is what Bill's worth. This is what I'm worth. I don't know.
I got you.
Yeah, you trade Nick for a fifth. I want a fourth.
Nick also pointed out he was wearing the Broncos colored tie yesterday.
Chargers colored tie.
Chargers. Oh, it was Chargers?
It's Chargers, yeah.
When you sent the picture to me,
it was like
looked
blue
orange.
And yellow.
It looked orange.
It was like blue and yellow, yeah. Sean doesn't make.
Maybe I'm doing wishful thinking on my phone. I saw Broncos colors on my phone.
Sean doesn't do anything unintentionally.
Yeah. See, if it was me, listen, man. When you broke, you gamble, right? And so if I'm the Saints, I'm like, man, the Chargers are, that's just a tough pick. 24th. I mean, I guess you're looking at multiple first, so it begins to look a little bit better. Or maybe you're not. Maybe you're looking at a second. I have no idea of compensation, but. I'm looking at these other teams. I'm looking at the Panthers. I would give the Panthers. I would trade them to the Panthers.
That's probably the Saints' first choice. Sure.
Yeah, I mean,
Panthers
Arizona, the Texans. Right. I'm like, man, look, we're in a place where we need to get a quarterback, and how can we best do that? If I risk something for it, then I think you have to take risks for quarterback, because usually when you get a good quarterback, you either got lucky or something really bad happened, right? If it's you're picking really high because you had a bad season, or you pick Patrick Mahomes in the teens, et cetera. So I just think, like, you have to figure out a way to generate some luck. And I think a really easy way to do that is just to simply, trade them for a higher pick. Now, that's simpler. It's easier said than done. But I do think that that's something they have to think about. So,
I'll say this about the Carolina. Like, yeah, if they're giving me absolutely the best package for them, and it's significantly more than everybody else, and I probably take it. But man, that feels like something that could just backfire. It really just feels like something that could backfire in time, where you're looking at it and you're like, oh my God, this guy's just beating the hell out of us twice a year, every year for the next 7 years in a row, or whatever it is. It's something that you do now, but I could see it down the road. Like, I just feel like it needs to be said. Like, I feel like that's something that could haunt them for sure. Just having that guy in the division. Yeah. If they never figure it out and the Panthers do figure it out, everyone's going to be sitting there, and that's going to be that's going to be one of those things where
you're kind of taking two gambles then. If you trade him to Arizona or Denver or something like that, and he goes and wins a Super Bowl, like that doesn't automatically negatively affect you. You can be like, hey, we're happy for Sean, and now we're doing well too. But if he's winning the NFC South over and over again, it's at your expense. But I don't automatically hate, like, people are always like that. Never make a trade. If you're in two different places with the team, like the all-time example is what the Pelicans did with the Lakers. Like, once this Pelicans team is ready to start winning championships, that Lakers team feels like it's going to like go away for 5 years. Like, sometimes hurting your rival while doing what you want to accomplish can be a win-win. But yeah, in this situation, yeah, because Carolina's in a similar situation. But it'd be nice to take away Carolina's ability to get one of those quarterbacks in this year's class instead.
They're in the same situation
Yeah.
and in the same 14 place. Like,
Yeah,
it just feels
yeah.
like you're starting a race then, and I don't know.
And
Just
you're gonna, the constant comparison that
it feels like one of those things where we'd be sitting here 4 years from now being like, well, I understand why they did it, but you know what I mean? Like,
that should be the name of our podcast. I understand why they did it, but
I understand why they did it.
It just feels like something that'll haunt them, though, for sure. Like, I don't know. It's just kind of like, be careful what you wish for. Like, that's a big bet against somebody that you saw do a lot of good things for your team. And I don't know.
We should make that a weekly segment of the podcast where it could be like pop culture or football. Like, I understand why they did it.
Quick question though. This just popped in my head. So let's say that Carolina 9 somehow is Will Levis. Maybe you have to trade up to make it Will Levis, or maybe it is. Maybe it falls to 9. Would you rather have you get Will Levis, Carolina gets Payton, or Carolina gets Will Levis and the Saints don't get the quarterback?
I mean, that's yeah. I mean, that's fascinating. That's fascinating. Like, if you give me the quarterback, and
what helps Carolina more? They get their quarterback for the next.
Well, they could get the quarterback and still hire a good coach too. It doesn't have to be Sean Payton. Like, there's other qualified individuals in the world that they might hit on. So yeah, I mean, and look, if you get if Levis hits, whoever you hire at coach is probably going to end up working out.
Yeah.
Like, everybody thought Zach Taylor was, an idiot, and he was 6-25-1 at one point, and now he's, going to be a perennial Super Bowl contender type coach who's going to end his career with really good stature, and he might be really smart. It's one of those things, like, you got to have the players. So he might have been a good coach all along, and then he gets the player, and now he's much better. But yeah, they could end up with both. If you tell me Levis is going to hit, like, I would take Levis over and let them have Sean, because at least you got your quarterback thing solved. But it's one of those.
What if you don't know if Levis is going to hit? Like, no, just
right.
So would you rather have the Levis and the Panthers get Sean Payton, or you trade Sean? I mean, like, is that I would
without
take the
knowing if he hits or not? That's just your choice this year.
Right?
That's just that's your choice you get to make.
But you take the quarterback. I mean, when you're a bad team, you can't worry about keeping other teams bad with you. You got to worry about getting good. Right?
Exactly.
Right. I mean, if the Panthers have success and you have a good quarterback, then who cares?
Yeah, if you're telling me if it's Levis, it's worth the gamble, I think. It's worth the gamble. Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely worth the gamble.
Well, the one thing is if you take Carolina's 9th pick away from them, they're not getting the quarterback. Now, if they got Sean Payton, they might sign Jimmy Garoppolo. They might sign Tom Brady.
They might sign Lamar Jackson.
They might, okay. Never mind. It's still scary. Because that actually is a team that could do that. That is not a team that is in total rebuild mode. It's a team that's already got a good defense. So,
but I'm fine with that.
They could go the veteran quarterback route. Yeah.
Let Carolina sign whoever they want to with Sean Payton. If you got the 9th pick and you get a quarterback,
well, better hit.
Yeah, I mean, even if it does, just take quarterback out of it.
Yeah.
Like, just the 9th pick, right? Listen, I mean.
And it'd be more. I think Carolina would have to pay more than just the 9th pick.
Yeah.
Other teams, like Houston, might be able to be like, we're signing Sean Payton, it's a 12. That might be the whole deal with a pick that high. But with Carolina, 9 wouldn't be enough.
I think Carolina's probably 2 first.
Yeah.
If you're opening yourself up
to the division rival, it might be.
Yeah, because this is one of if you don't get enough,
Carolina does have to pay a premium for all the reasons, everything we're discussing. Yeah.
Like, the Saints situation is different. Like, the power structure is different, with the status of the general manager is different than most places. But trading this guy in the division and not getting enough back, like, that's the kind of move that gets other people fired. You know what I mean? Like, so you have to get the haul. You have to get the haul so it looks right and everything works out. So yeah, in the division, like, the premium, I think is significantly more.
Yeah, I agree with that, and that would give me even more incentive to trade him over there. I will say this: There's a very easy way to get a high pick, for Sean Payton. All you gotta do is dangle Taysom Hill in it. I guarantee you he's gonna
Shoot.
Texans. Yeah, I give you 2 in Taysom Hill for Sean Payton. And Sean's like, let's make it happen.
I don't know.
I'm not trading Taysom.
I don't
mean,
know.
I'm-
I don't know
I'm-
for all the heat we give Pete Carmichael, and I'm sure we're about to talk about that. I think they used Taysom Hill better this year than they ever did before.
So do I.
And they still were only
Yeah.
scratching the surface.
So do I.
And they still didn't really maximize him. Yeah. Now I'm joking about Taysom Hill,
Sean should, one of the worst things Sean Payton ever did is he's the one who fell in love with Taysom Hill, and then he never figured out how to use him right.
I mean, I said I'm joking about Taysom, but if they say, "Hey, Arizona 3," and you got to put Taysom in there, I'm sending Taysom
It has
right
to-
to the
yeah.
desert.
It has to be a
I'm
I'm
separate
sending
trade.
him right
yeah.
to the
It has to
desert.
be a
Yeah,
separate
you can
trade,
take
but-
Taysom and you can take a few other guys if you wanted to. If it makes you happy, right? Carmichael. I'm joking, but yeah, seriously, would have picked that high. So let's just getting into it a little bit more. When you're looking at the teams, obviously, the Texans are a team that stands out because they have the 9th pick. The Cardinals are a team that really stands out because they're in a really weird position, right? They're picking so high and you're not going to pick a quarterback there. So you're weighing how much can a head coach bring to this team versus some other position, maybe a pass rusher, a cornerback, an offensive lineman. I'm not sure what exactly they would be looking at there, but just when you look at the landscape, and this is super speculative. Like, who would you say would maybe be the leader in the Sean Payton sweepstakes now? Considering maybe I think you said the Chargers are probably a team that's not going to do it based on some of the things you're hearing. So when you look at the teams now, you got Denver, you got Arizona, you got the Texans and the Panthers. Like, who's kind of the one that stands out the most or makes the most sense when you look at it? And all things considered, compensation, where they're picking, in the state of the team.
Yeah, I've been saying it for months. For me, it's Arizona. Arizona's the team
You've
that
been
makes the
saying
most
that.
sense. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think they got
yeah.
the best roster out of this group. They got the young weapons. It's a good city. It feels like there's a lot of upside there. To me, that's the one that it's just when you put the pieces together, it feels like they're closer. And I know that people have a certain view of the Bidwells or whatever. We'll see how that all comes into effect. But I think if he were picking a spot and I were placing money on one, my money would be on Arizona right now.
My answer is going to be a tiny bit of a cop out in that it's going to be whoever promises Peyton the best relationship with ownership and management, because I think you could make almost an even case for all the quarterback situations. Like Russell Wilson and Kyler Murray are scary, but they're proven and you know who they are. Carolina and Houston don't have a quarterback yet, but they have picks that could help them get a quarterback. So I think in all 4 of those situations, Sean Payton can convince himself, I can make this quarterback work, or I can find the quarterback I want. I think what's going to matter most to him is, where do I have, and he doesn't have to have all the power. He worked with Mickey Loomis his whole time here, and he never left in part because of that. He liked his relationship with Loomis. So whether that's George Payton in Denver, or whether it's whoever Arizona is going to hire, or whether Carolina is keeping, is it Fitterer? Is that how you pronounce his name? Or whether the Texans are keeping Nick Casario, he needs to like what they're telling him about what that structure is going to be, and like how much ownership is going to get out of the way. And I think the money will speak to that. If they're saying, we're giving you $25 million a year or $20 million a year because we want this to be Sean Payton's team and we want you to create however it is, whichever of those 4 teams offers him the setup he likes best in that department is the one he would pick.
I think they're all going to offer him the setup, though.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
if you're going after Sean and you want Sean and you're going to invest the picks and you're
Maybe
gonna
we don't know if the Bidwells will do that. That's been a big
22,
question
23
mark.
million. I think they would. I mean,
Which is why I was going to say Denver's probably the front runner, because I think we know that ownership is going to be aggressive enough to tell him whatever he wants.
But
to
you're
hear.
You're tied to the I disagree too. I don't think Russell and Kyler are the same. Like,
Yeah.
Kyler's going to be good. He's going to be a headache though. Like the downside of Kyler is that he's still going to give you the yards. He's still going to give you the performance, but you're going to have to fight with him and he's going to annoy the hell out of you and you're going to have to find a way to manage him. The downside with Russell is that maybe Russell isn't good. And you're stuck with him for a while. So I think that's a little different, but yeah, I think wherever he goes, he's going to find the money, because if you're coming to the table for Sean, you're going to have to pay him. So I don't think the money is going to be the deciding factor unless somebody says, you know what? And look, him saying, I'll go back to Fox is, okay, you better throw an extra $2 or $3 million on there every single time. That's what he's saying with that every single time. But he's going to get the money. They're going to give the picks. And I think the power structure is going to be what it is. I've even heard that Casario, who is he's like an alpha dog. Like, I've heard that he's willing to step back in, kind of his primary responsibilities to allow for someone like Sean to come in if that's what it takes.
That, honestly, like, Houston is such a joke, and Houston joke isn't even a right word. I mean, that what they've done to their last two coaches is so awful that I don't want to give Houston any credit for anything. But if you can remove yourself from that, that probably is the best job, because Caserio is a good GM to work with, and they do have the second pick and a ton of other picks that they got in that Deshaun Watson sweepstakes. If you're a coach who can stomach how ownership has treated the previous two coaches and feel like they're going to treat you different, which sucks that that's the reality, that might be the best of all of them.
Yeah, how they did Lovey is just to put this on, how they did Lovey was absolutely disgusting.
I think the Texans, that the optics would be a tough sell for that situation.
This guy gets more than a year because look who he is. Yeah, that's
bullshit. The optics on that situation is just going to generate a lot. It's just that's going to, and rightfully so. The Texans have not treated head coaches. Maybe you feel like with a share shake, you got a bottom of the barrel roster, and you're just going through.
Well, the worst part is they treated Bill O'Brien like he was freaking Bill Parcells. He had an inordinate amount of power and no one ever understood why he had so much power and so many years on the job. And
they let him bring in the Patriots team chaplain to run football operations. For God's sakes. Look, I'm not going to say what I really want to say, and I wouldn't fault anybody for coming in there behind the last two guys, but like I wouldn't want to be the person to come in behind those last two guys. Like I just wouldn't want to touch that situation myself. Exactly. I feel like there's some stuff there with perhaps how they view the world that's a little bit troubling to me, and I'll just leave it there.
Yeah, I think that's a.
And Sean might feel that way too. I mean, Sean does care about stuff like that.
And I wouldn't fault anyone for doing it. Like, there's only 32 of these jobs. If that's the best situation, maybe you go in there and you get on the inside and change it from the inside. For me, though, it just looks toxic.
Yeah. So with Arizona, I saw the great Deuce McAllister, who's a former guest of this pod, say that he don't think that the Saints gets a top 5 pick for Sean Payton.
That he doesn't, you're saying?
Yeah, I saw that he doesn't think that they get a top 5 pick for Sean Payton. So, do you agree? Do you think Arizona? Agree. Do you think Arizona gives the? You'd be shocked.
I'd be shocked if Houston offers the 2 or Arizona offers the 3. I'd be shocked. I really would.
Okay, that's the one. The Texans for 2 is. I don't think that's even on the table. If you're the Texans, I don't think you can even remotely. And I saw that quoted, right? So just a heads up. But with Arizona, if they trade for Payton, you don't think 3 is on the board. So what would be the compensation, right? That's the next question. Right. Like, how do you get Sean Payton if you don't give up the number 3 pick? I guess that's the.
They probably would have to offer next year's first, I think. So it would probably have to be the 33rd pick in next year's first. I bet would have to be the basis of something like that.
That's a nice haul.
Maybe the early 3rd plus next year's first and second. I don't know if that would be enough, but probably 33rd next year's first.
I wouldn't take a 3 this year. Like, I gotta get the 2 this year and then the 1 next year. And I think Deuce's take on it is probably extremely realistic too. I mean, you never know. Like, maybe the stars align and it's the perfect storm, and we have to have them, and you just give 3 this year and there's nothing else in the deal. I don't know. Like, it wouldn't blow my mind if that's how it happened, but I would be extremely surprised. So yeah, I mean, I agree with all that. I think it's probably something. If it is, I think it's probably a 2 and a 1 next year or something like that.
I got it. If I'm asking for the 3. I'm sorry.
I'm asking.
Yeah,
I'm asking, and I mean, at some point you gotta. Yeah, I just think that, like, you want Sean Payton and you have the quarterback already. I want that pick. I think that's what they got to shoot for. And at some point you gotta be willing to say, how am I going to stand here, and am I willing to down this hill, or if it's something.
But here's another clue that we already have. Here's another clue that we already have. We already know that the first team that the Saints gave permission to was Denver. Denver doesn't have the 3rd pick in the draft. The first pick in the draft Denver has might be 32 actually this year, because the 49ers look like a steamroller. So if the Saints have already told Denver they could get this deal done, how is Arizona going to be like, so wait a minute, Denver can get away with giving you the 32nd pick in the draft or next year's first, but for us, we only have to give you the 3. Like, I think the Saints are telling there's a general box. It probably costs a first this year or a first next year, and if it's a first next year, then it's these 3 other picks or whatever. But like, I think I don't I don't think they can demand the 3rd pick in the draft if they've already told Denver there's something they can tell them that's good enough.
The package overall could change. Like if Houston's giving up 12 versus 32, like you're 12, and then whatever the sweeteners are probably, it's the yellow packet of sugar instead of the
But
pure
if they
sugar.
were going to take, I'm saying if they were going to take the stance Kevin is talking about, they would have told Denver, sorry, you don't have the ammo. You don't have permission.
You could tell Arizona, this is our price for you. Mickey even said that it is thing that like everybody has a different price because everybody doesn't have the same stuff to offer. So you could ask for 3, try to make. I don't think you're going to get it. I don't think you're going to get it. But
I mean, if you're looking at Denver and you're looking at Russell Wilson, I want Denver pick because I want your future stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
I've seen Russell Wilson, and I'm like, man, give me your 20. Give me that pick and give me your. I don't know if they have their first next year, but
they do, right?
Yeah, I would love that
year?
pick.
Is that right or no?
Yeah, it's like the Pelicans taking the Lakers pick. Like, go ahead and take it. But down the road, your guys are going to be aging. And Russell Wilson is a 30-plus-year-old quarterback who's not as mobile as he used to be, who's not a good pocket quarterback, and he's regressed in that area. Who's gotten worse and worse the last 2 or 3 years. Like that Denver pick looks like a great pick.
But I'm just saying, I think the conversation has already happened. I think the conversation has already happened. The Saints have already given Arizona permission. I bet they've already let Arizona know that they don't have to pay the number 3 overall pick.
But I just don't think that. Like if I'm the Saints, like I'm not letting Houston, because if I'm letting Arizona get out of there with their 2 and next year's 1. I don't know that I'm necessarily letting Houston do the same. I want their 12. Like I'm not offering them the same exact thing. So I don't know that you can say like,
but I bet
you're letting Denver do this. Well, no, because like Denver's gonna have to offer X, Y, and Z to go along with 32 or 31 or 30 or whatever.
But back to the none of us think they're getting the 3.
Right.
I know everybody wants the 3.
I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen. But my play would be, I would sprint to the 3. I would be playing for the 3 hard, and I would tell Denver, hey Denver, Arizona, Denver's giving me enough compensation, and it ain't just to pick this year.
Yeah, they're giving me 2 firsts and a third.
Yeah, you're giving me a couple of firsts and a second down the road. Yeah, I'm taking their whole house with them, right? For you lose a pick for 1 year, and you got the almost a first round pick in the second.
Here's
round,
the ultimate leverage though is okay. Oh well, you're offering Denver this. Well, yeah, that's great, but Sean said yes to you, and this is the price to get him.
Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah,
and that would be my stance if he chooses Arizona. I tweeted out, I was like, Sean, I want 3, or you and Strahan are going to be friends. I don't care. And it's fine. And if you got to play hardball, you got to play hardball because the Saints need a quarterback. Sean Payton is no longer your friend. It doesn't matter right? You have to do right by the team and the organization. And so, and it's nothing personal, it's just business. And if Arizona is his choice, then I'm like 3 or Strahan.
Yeah,
it's simple. I don't care, and I would take that stance, right? And it may make some bad blood, but that's the business, man. Friendships, and these things they're temporary. So the Saints' interest has to be the Saints.
I think Mickey goes hard too. I do think Mickey goes hard. I don't think they get the top 5. I think you aim for it. You aim for it for sure. I don't think they get it. But look, here's the thing, and everyone's like, oh, they're gonna let him off easy. It's Sean's buddy or whatever. Like, no, Sean left you for somebody else.
Thank you.
Sean left you for somebody else. Mickey knows that Sean left him for somebody else. He's not going to let him go be with someone else and then be like, hey, you and your new people come live in the house. I'll go stay at the Motel 6. Like, that's not how it's going to happen.
Yeah.
And to take it a step further, like, and this is not my opinion on it, but, you just, I know in the fan base, like, the trades haven't really benefited the Saints recently, right? And, they look at the CD trade and like it wasn't enough. Yeah, and so it's like you need to win a trade. At some point, at least with optics, it's just like they need to knock this trade out the ballpark, right? And I think if he chooses Arizona and then you take their second, oh man. I think the criticism is going to come, and I think it will probably be a little worth it because I just think that you have to win some of these trades.
Like the thing about like this like happiness thing that like everybody's talking about, like we'll make everybody happy. They fired Pete Carmichael a week ago instead of sometime this week. Oh, that would have made everybody happy. The thing that's going to make everybody happy is that these things work out over time and they ultimately win games. So whatever people say today doesn't matter until the whole thing's done. I mean, that's just kind of
I don't think all that.
There needs to be some
thinking about all that stuff neither. Yeah,
the criticism will come. Yeah, Kevin said the criticism will come. Yeah, That is the truest thing said on this podcast today. The criticism will come.
Yeah,
They
second,
can do
the subtitle.
nothing right anymore.
I understand
all of a
it,
sudden,
but
Mickey Loomis is
the
an
criticism will
idiot.
come.
Everyone who's ever been associated with the team is an idiot.
So what they should have
toxic
did
right
is
now.
a new segment, and the new name of the pod is "The Criticism Will Come." We're moving forward here on this pod. Like, Mike, you got some good ideas today, man.
Mickey
Head of
Loomis
operations,
is the
Mike
only
Christian.
look, and I think he's deserving of some heat right now. The trade, all this stuff, but he is the only GM in the league that gets zero credit for anything positive that happens. Like nobody's like Howie Roseman's cap guy did this and this. Howie Roseman's director of college scouting did this, and this. But like Mickey hires Sean, Mickey hires Jeff Ireland, Mickey hires Kai Harley, Mickey hires the pro scouts that find the UDFAs and the people that found Rashid Shaheed and all this stuff. But like when it's good, it's
just because he hired that guy.
Oh, Kai killed this, Jeff killed this, Michael Parrington found this, hidden gem and whoever. But like it's never like, oh, the Saints GM did a good job. He never gets any credit. And I feel bad for him for that. But like he does deserve the heat that he has right now. Like everything that happened last offseason did not work out. So all the heat is warranted. But like it's like, man, like he's never gotten any credit for anything positive that's ever happened in this organization.
Yeah. Man. So we got a little bit of time left. I'm gonna jump on one more topic. Let's get to the staff, because I know we kind of teased the staff conversation a couple of times during this pod. Here we go. All right, Nick, let's start with you. What happens on the staff this offseason? What's some of the moves you think they should make, and some of the moves you think they will make? Offensive, defensive side. I know Ryan Nielsen is potentially getting he's getting interviewed for the defensive coordinator job for the Falcons, and you have Pete Carmichael and the offensive staff, which guys are outside with their pitchforks with. So, what do you think happens with some of the staff changes?
I think Ryan Nielsen's a great coach. I think he's done a lot of good things. I think he's due for a chance at defensive coordinator somewhere. So if he goes, that wouldn't surprise me at all. And I think it would be a significant loss. The only thing that I think that you could say is maybe a decent outcome from this, or something that not even a decent outcome, just like a door B, maybe this works. Like maybe Peyton Turner connects with somebody else's voice different than it has here. And I'm not saying that's a failure on Ryan Nielsen. It's just like maybe you get something out of him with a different approach, because whatever's happening now is not getting anything out of him. So that would be the only thing that I would see as a possible upside from that. But I think the overall downside would be significant. He's a really good coach, and there's a reason he's getting attention. As far as things they should do, I mean, I'm still looking at offensive coordinator. I want to see someone that kind of comes in with a different vision, or maybe Pete comes back with a different vision. Maybe he can figure it out through all right, this is what we want and this is how it needs to be done. And maybe he gets it done. I don't know. But like, I think there's serious consideration that needs to be made toward that. And look, I want to see somebody that just has a different approach overall. Like I think you got Chris Olave and you got Rashid Shaheed, and there's just like a basic spread concept there of those guys lining up in extremely wide splits and having option routes on vertical routes where you can just kind of take advantage of leverage and all that stuff. And that's a very easy starting point. And I don't know that they started at that point last year at all. And look, you need a quarterback that can take advantage of it. And I don't know that they had that guy either. But I mean, there's some pieces there, foundational pieces that allow you to do some, really creative stuff and kind of be at the forefront of offense a little bit. And they weren't there last year. So whoever gets you to that point, I think that's where you need to start.
So you're saying the new coach can run no version of the West Coast offense?
Well, look, the other thing too is that I just think like the verbiage and everything is just they want to play fast, and they do a pretty good job with tempo. But like I think you can play better tempo with shorter play calls, and that's something that Kirby Smart dealt with at Georgia at one point. He realized that his play calls were way too long. They weren't getting into checks, and people were able to kind of do different things to take advantage of them on defense, and he shortened down his verbiage so that they could play faster on the field and make these changes, and it wasn't people looking around like, hey, what's going on? So I mean, that's something that I think just being in this era, just kind of where attention spans where they are and everything, and you don't have a quarterback that's been here for 15 years that can kind of help be the distiller of information when somebody's looking around going like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. I think it's something that you kind of need to look at it holistically and say, all right, like, how do we do this better, faster, simpler? And that's the whole world. Anybody that manufactures anything, like the faster you can do it, the more simple it can be, the more intuitive it is. And I don't think that the Saints offense is very intuitive right now.
That's true. And I mean, the Drew making the offensive coordinator look right element to this is can't be overstated. But yeah, look, the pitchforks are warranted in this case.
Yeah,
if
definitely.
they don't fire Pete Carmichael, they need to express a very clear vision for why they didn't and what their new different plan is going forward. I mean, the only reason that I wouldn't say you automatically definitely fire Pete Carmichael is that we've seen Pete Carmichael be successful in the league in a lot of different ways, but the only way he gets a chance to do it is if he's doing it in a different way. I think it's probably more likely that he probably does get replaced, either fired or moved into another role. I think that's the most likely outcome. The only other possible outcome is Pete's going to be a part of us coming up with a radically new approach to our offense. But either way, it's got to change. And Nick didn't mention Alvin Kamara, but that's probably the number one thing that has to change is as long as he's a part of your team, you need to use him way better than you used him last year. I mean,
way different.
Yeah, exactly. And so there is no, like, I know the famous Dennis Allen quote that everyone has described him as is the everything's okay here, keep doing what you're doing. That's the quote that everyone makes fun of him for, which actually kind of worked as an approach on defense. That can't be the approach to the offense. This was not we just had bad luck and injuries, but if we roll out the same offense this year, this time it'll work. They better all recognize that that's not true. It needs to be probably new play caller, new quarterback, new offensive style, but at least 2 out of those 3 things need to change.
Well, I think that, coaches coach what they know, right? Like if you see a guy that comes from Shanahan tree, then you kind of have an idea what their offense is going to look like, right? And so I don't see how you can keep Pete Carmichael and say we're going to have an entirely different offensive approach because for the past 16 years, he's had an offensive approach and that's what that's what he knows, right? And so for him to come and to be a part of a group of guys or someone that's going to still be the offensive coordinator and completely change the identity of the offense and have guys just doing things different and shortening the verbiage. And, he's going to be learning as much as he's going to be teaching, right? Because
I'm just giving him the benefit of the doubt from the things like how aggressive he is and how creative he is with Kamara's usage, because those are things he has proven before. If he had a 20-year track record of running the Tennessee Titans offense, then I'd be like, hey, it's time to go with a passing offense. But, he actually has a longer track record of being, the guy on an offense that was thrown for over 5,000 yards every single year and the most creative usage of tight ends and running backs that we saw in the entire league. So we know it's in there somewhere. That's the only benefit of the doubt I'm giving him. It can't be the run it between the tackles and 4 yards at a time offense that we've seen for actually the last couple years in New Orleans.
Yeah, look, in Pete's defense, I don't think he had a lot to work with.
Right.
I think the quarterback, it's hard to be successful as an offensive coordinator when you don't have the guy pulling the trigger who's someone who you feel confident in. So with all due fairness, definitely, that's something that should be said. But I guess I'm here. I'm with Nick here a little bit. I think they need a different system. They need a different approach. They need new eyes. They need guys. You brought in Marone because he knows the system. Pete has been there forever. Yeah. I just think you got to try something new, man. I think you got to have an offense where maybe guys can play faster. It's not as hard for guys to learn the play calls because it sounds like a paragraph in a novel. It sounds good when you say it on TV, but practically, it just sounds like something that if I was a young player, and this is just speaking from someone without experience, but it seems like a young player, it would just benefit guys that can come in and kind of produce a little bit.
Hopefully we're talking about a rookie quarterback too, so that'd be great.
Yeah, that's the thing. Right, and if you bring in a rookie quarterback, do you want to introduce him to these sentence long play calls, right? And so I just think you got to go a different direction. And it's professional. It's not nothing personal. It's nothing against Pete Carmichael. It's a results-based business, right? And I just think, based on maybe recent evidence, I think it'd be a tough sell to the fan base, very least. And I know they're not making decisions based off that, but it'd be a hard sell to anyone to run that back. Yep. All right. Well, that's all we got, man. It was good to connect with my guys again. I feel like I ain't recorded in a couple of weeks, so you guys can't get away from me. So man, shout out to our sponsors. Shout out to everybody that support us. Shout out to the members. To you guys who make all this possible. So we appreciate you guys. Hope your New Year's going well. We'll see you next week.